Rugged, lightweight, comfortable, handcrafted rockin' leather boots. Made to work all day and be out all night. RockinLeather.com. Introducing the Rixey Generation 2 Dog Stand. Lightweight, collapsible, and engineered for versatility. This stand is built with a laser-cut powder-coated steel frame, tempera aluminum legs, and a durable Duramesh fabric. Weighing just under 8 pounds, it's effortless to carry and set up. With a working load limit of 120 pounds, it attaches to nearly any tree. Available now at RixeyOutdoors.com.
Winter Productions, content creation company that is here to tell your story, whether it's about the love of your life or capturing the chase of a lifetime. We are here to tell your story.
Roll up to the club. My 1964 cat is straight ready to start. At a quarter to one. Just a looking for
Man,
fun.
you really gonna sell this place.
I said, that's three dead cups.
Yeah. Let's go kill some ducks.
Take another shot, get a lip on me, baby. Ooh, it's a quarter to
Let's go. Yo. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. I send the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same. Cause that's what it takes.
It's time to talk dog vest. Recoil Outdoors dog vest. We use this dog vest all season long. It's stood up to the test. Let's talk some features about it. This dog vest is built with industrial grade Velcro for a snug fit around the neck, unlike any competitors. This vest comes with dual rear straps for a snug fit around the waist. This vest allows for a tucked away handle for the timber or an open handle for open water. This vest also comes with covered edges around the neoprene to prevent chafing. Recoil vest also comes with a Gadwall chest strip that runs the length of the vest to prevent punctures and cuts. This vest comes in 6 different sizes, tailored to fit the smallest boykin to the biggest lab. Recoil Outdoors, the only fully adjustable one-piece dog vest on the market. Check them out online.
Welcome back to another episode of Life Between the Bodies, brought to you by Rockin' Leather, Rixey Outdoors, Hunt Proof, Bluebird Waterfowl, 30 Duck Coffee, Winter Productions, and Recoil Outdoors. Now let's get it started. Welcome back, everyone. Wow, and I can't hear myself. There we go. Turn that up. Oh, we're here. Been crazy couple weeks with work. Glad to be back. We're trying to get this mic figured out. Yeah, we're pumped to be back, and this is gonna be an amazing episode. We're doing it with the Gadwall Whiskey guys. Yeah, talking to a whiskey guy. So we're gonna see how this goes. I've got to jump over and call in a second. He's gonna be hopping on. We're gonna go for about an hour, and then we're gonna kick this off. And I've got some stuff to go do and more stuff to clean up. So that's what game plan is. And I'm getting echo like crazy. There we go. That fixed it. Yeah, bam. I swear this system outsmarts me every single day. So we're also working on revamping a little more on the video side. I've got this software I really like. I'm kind of figuring out how to use it, but we've got a chance to kind of upgrade here to a new system. We're going to. And my mic is just being complete and utter trash for some reason. Test 1, 2, test. Is that better? Is that better? All right, there we go. Let's try that. Okay. Gosh. The call went great, like the test call I did. That went great. So we're 1 minute from starting off. This is going to be, I'm pretty pumped, man. It was supposed to happen last week, but we had a death in the family and didn't get to do it. So we're going to kick it off today and hop on over. Hey, can you hear me? Wait. Try that now. Yeah, I can hear you. Get this lined out. Hey, can you hear me now? We're good? You're breaking up a little bit on your side.
Okay, so let me turn off my Bluetooth.
Oh, yeah. That. You're breaking up again some. One second. And for some reason. Oh, there we go. I can hear you.
That's good, better?
Yeah, there you
go. Okay. Yeah, man, these Bluetooth headphones, yeah, they're not ideal. They kind of go on you pretty quickly.
Oh man, like I hate technology when it comes to this kind of stuff. I get outsmarted daily, I feel like. I've changed up this podcast setup like 7-8 times, and I think this is the reason why I became a bourbon drinker. Was I was trying to do a podcast, and the only way I could survive it was the drink.
That's nice. It's funny. I've been listening to your podcasts in preparation. Just when you reached out, and I was like, I was really apprehensive. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna, I'm worried about connecting. And I tell you, I really dig your style. You're always very candid and honest, which I try to be, and you always look for ways to connect instead of looking for the things that separate. So I think that's really cool, man. That's really
yeah.
Really dig it.
I mean, a guy named Ronnie Phillips, he kind of showed me the way that, like, man, you got to be able to connect with everyone because you never know when you're going to meet them again, and everyone knows everyone. It's crazy. I love this.
And I didn't realize that you and I was looking at. So you've got a toddler. I've got a little toddler too. So when you're talking about your toddler and how smart he was, the kids are. I'm like, yep. Mine's about 2.5, and he's already outsmarting me, and I'm not liking it, and I'm like worried about it. And my background, I don't know if you want to talk about this when we're on, but I worked in film production for like over a decade. So I started out in television, and like I'm 35 mil doing 16 mil movies and that kind of stuff years ago. So listening, I think one of your recent ones, you were talking with somebody who's doing production with a rodeo, and I found that one really interesting. That was a cool podcast.
Yeah, man. And I've already hit record. We're good to go. And this is like great. Yeah, man. That kid, dude, it caught me off guard, like how young he was, because I didn't ask his age, because like my thing is like I don't care how old you are,
right?
And like he has knowledge of everything, and literally he just said yes twice to on a job, and it turned into like basically changing his life, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I think one of the couple of takeaways that I had from that was that one, you were talking about like being curious, right? You got to like be interested in stuff, and that's kind of like my circle, my friends and family. It's always, have an interest, keep learning, always learn, right? No matter how old you get, or whatever, you don't just because you kind of settle into life, you just keep exploring, try something new, and also try to let somebody change your mind. We all live in this world where like our algorithms just like reinforce narratives, right? So it's like if you can kind of let yourself be exposed to stuff, it's just so enjoyable when you can find things out there that you've never done before. And that's kind of, I was telling you through some of our chats, I was like, I did a lot of international development for whiskey, for American whiskeys, for bourbon in particular, because bourbon is unique to the U.S. You can only get it from us. So when I was doing that, you got to change perceptions. Everybody internationally, you know what they think about when they think about bourbon?
I would be the slightest of the guess.
Cowboys. It's always cowboys. It's always they think of people just like walking into a saloon, taking a shot of it. Like it is just every time you ask people to like kind of give you a visual, that's where they go. It's like always this like very kind of like, very old, just kind of sepia tone kind of back in the, and you're like, that's really out of all the things that have happened, but that's it. Once it's stuck. And when you start talking about bourbon and you start talking about whiskey and you see people go, wow, it's just very cool. It's like, it's awesome. Like I said, that's kind of where I kind of really built my education into whiskey, which again came from my days of just being a storyteller working in film production.
Yeah, I mean I guess I agree. Like when I think of like bourbon and whiskey, and it's funny when I talk to people about drinking bourbon and whiskey, it's like it's literally your country boy, your farmers, your hunters that drink it. Like, I mean, everyone else is off drinking like either you drink bourbon and whiskeys or you drink like Bush Light. I feel like if you're like a country person,
yeah.
And then everybody else drinks the IPAs. It's like a weird little mix. Like there for a while, I drank the IPAs.
Me too.
And I liked them. But I think I liked them because they were different than just a normal beer.
Right. Yeah. I like all things for different reasons, right? In different environments, right? So you try different things.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing better than a light, cheap beer on a summer day outside. I mean, that's just, and then you're at a ballpark. Like that's the best environment. Those IPAs, summer, you want to go on that. They're all different reasons. One thing that I really used to push, and the thing that I fell in love with when it comes to like bourbon and American whiskey in general, is that it's so versatile that people don't get that. So like when you think of Scotch whiskey, it's got that real smokiness, right? It's like peaty. It's like boom, it's gonna hit you. You're sitting down in some mahogany library or something, right? That's kind of like what people go with. But like you can make a mint julep and have bourbon in the summer. You can make a hot toddy and have something in the winter. Like the versatility of bourbon, when you tell people like you can make this cocktail and you can go make it really sweet, you can make these sours, you can just have it on the rocks, you can have it neat. There's like, it's like so many things you can do with this one product. And that's just if you go with like this style of bourbon. Then why don't you pick like a high rye? Why don't you pick and it's just like your brain start like, holy cow, I can go so many directions with this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming for someone that was like new into it, but like I've loved every second of it, getting into it, and like we traveled last week for Memorial Weekend, and I took 2 different bottles of bourbon. I took like a couple mixers and stuff with me, and that's all I drank. Like I mixed up drinks. Like I was like, I'm gonna mix drinks. Like we're gonna hang out with people, like I'm gonna mix drinks. That's what I want to have, and you can literally make like right now I'm on like a cinnamon peach. Like old fashioned kick, and I love it.
Nice. Cinnamon peach. I'm gonna have to
It's one that for y'all's contest I wanted to do, but we could not find peaches to do it, and I was like so mad. My wife goes, "It's not peach season." I'm like, "Well, someone needs to grow them in a greenhouse because this is annoying."
I'm when I do my mixed cocktails, I like to do things really bitter to kind of balance. So I'm a kind of the bitter person. My wife's really into like paper plane. She likes the like lemony kind of things that complement like citrus. She's big into that. So like I'm making different cocktails for different styles and different people. So it's always a kind of interesting. Again, explore. And that's the other thing too. Like people don't realize how easy it is to make a cocktail. Like most of your cocktails are like 3 ingredients. They don't need to be. You don't need to sit there with some leather apron and get into this whole thing. you can mix great, like so many great cocktails with like 3 ingredients. That's it. You've got
Yeah.
your spirit, you've got your, you got your bitter agent and your sweet agent, and then kind of your finishing thing, and that's it. That's all you need, and then you've got.
Yeah,
That's
it blew me away like how simple it was when when I started looking into it. I was like, oh, this is like super basic. I was like, huh.
That's the great thing. Like I was saying, like if you're curious, like you realize like things always seem so out of reach, and then when you start like kind of going into a direction, you're like, oh man, this is I can approach this. I can do this. I can do that. Like why not?
Yeah.
Like why? It doesn't have to be complicated. Now, hey, lots of people and good, they make it as complicated as they want to, and good, if that's how they enjoy it, then so be it. But it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to be.
Yeah. So my one buddy, real quick, and then we're gonna jump into the origin story of Gadwall and kind of some background. He's got me kicked into a cigar and bourbon kind of thing, and that kind of kicked off like a coffee and a cigar thing, kind of hunting, and then it's kind of now transferred over to like having like a nice like bourbon on the rocks, or even like a little cocktail with a cigar at night. Like it's very relaxing, like surprisingly.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I had my cigar moment too, but man, you realize how far you take it, and you're like, okay, I gotta take a break.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I've like drew the line because like I've had people like I work with a guy who like I don't think he drinks bourbon. His like father-in-law kind of got him into cigars, and I like he started telling me about cigars, and I'm like do you drink bourbon or anything? He's like, no man, I'm just kind of on this like cigar kick, and like he's got like the 200 like freaking cabinet in his house, and it's like full. I'm like, how often are you smoking cigars? It's like, all like once a month, and I'm like, yeah, you need to quit buying cigars, bud. You're good for a year.
And it's going in a bigger direction because I see a lot of brands out there, a lot of whiskey brands that are partnering up to like kind of create kind of different.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting where they're going with. We get approached by people who are doing a lot of cigars and stuff too. It's very interesting. I feel like that is newer. The whole like cigar and bourbon. It's much newer than some of the other things out there. But
Yeah, I feel like it's a younger thing that kind of like
Yep.
people my age probably would have brought back just because like we aren't the guys that would have smoked cigars to start with.
Right.
And then like it kind of was like a way for us to kind of tie two things together.
Yeah, you're right. I agree.
It gave us an
You're
excuse to drink and an excuse to smoke a cigar. Just let us do it together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I remember the cigar bars and cigar magazines back in the day, and you're right. It has its ebb and flows to it, and I think right now it's resurging.
Yeah. So kind of give a quick background of like your involvement and history with like bourbons and stuff. You kind of touched on it there. Let's hit that kind of quick.
Yeah. So for the past decade, I worked for a trade association where I basically helped American whiskey brands, primarily American whiskey brands, look for international audiences. So I would help brands of all sizes, like really big brands to small sizes. We'd help them kind of grow kind of their awareness in international markets. And it was twofold. Obviously, you kind of build the individual brand, right? But you're also building an education. So you've got to educate a consumer, because when you walk into a new market, like Japan, for instance, they only know Scotch whiskey. They only know Irish whiskey. So they don't understand what's a rye, what's a bourbon, what's an American single malt, what's Tennessee whiskey. So you start educating consumers, and then you start at the same time you're educating mixologists and hospitality, and you're getting them aware, so that when somebody walks in and they say, what, I'd like that cocktail, can you tell me about it? Instead of, oh, well, it's really good, they can say it's made with bourbon, and bourbon is just, it's distinctively, from America. You can only get it from America. It's got this sweeter profile. Here's this and that. You interested, and then boom, it opens the door, right? It's not just that evening; it's that experience that may kind of turn into something else. So I got into that because of my kind of storytelling background in film production. When I was growing up, I worked in movies and production, and really loved the storytelling part of it. So I just kind of took that into whiskey. How do I tell the story of whiskey? How do I tell people? First, you learn about your audience, and then you go from there. So I did that for a decade. And then during the pandemic, I said, after a while, you develop a palate. I've tried, I can't tell you how many countless American, I mean, so many brands. And I've seen like really great whiskeys that don't have a lot of, they're really small producers that just don't have the capability of growing because they keep things small, they focus on the whiskey, and that's great. And then there are others out there that will really just focus on kind of the branding and the marketing side of it, but really not what's in the bottle. And that really hurts the industry to a degree. Yeah, that's not great. But there's never really, sometimes you find that unicorn where they kind of blend together. And as I was developing my palate, I go, oh, that's a great whiskey. That's a new whiskey. I think that's going to do really well. And then sure enough, it would get picked up in an international market. And that growth would really help them expand. Because something I don't know if you're familiar with, um, it's sometimes easier to sell whiskey internationally than it is to sell it in the United States. Because of prohibition, we got so fearful of everything that we've created this 3-tier system. So it's very difficult for me to sell. I have a set of rules in Virginia and I have a different set of rules in Maryland and all throughout the state, all different rules, right?
Yeah.
But if I want to sell my whiskey to Canada or to Japan or anybody else, it's so much simpler. Here's this quick introduction. You work with it, you handle obviously the taxes, but it can be a lot faster. So for a lot of these small brands, they get an opportunity internationally that can change their whole portfolio for them moving forward, their whole business model for a few years. So after years and years of doing this, I was like, I really would love the opportunity to make my own whiskey. I know the people, I know the industry, I know who to get my bottle from. You daydream about it for years, right? Like, it's one of those things. And I'll credit honestly my wife. It would have just been that story that I would have told at bars. Like, you're sitting there and you're like, I had a whiskey in mind. I was going to do this. I was going to do that. And at some point she's like, why don't you just do it? And I was like, well, it's just, you got to make this investment and she's like, you got the contacts, you know what you want. You've got the profile that you want, what you want to create. You've got almost everything in place. What is stopping you? And I kept using, she's like, no, just do it. Just go and do it. And I said, fine, okay, let's do this. So I got the bottle that I wanted. I started working with designers, started making sure that I was getting the flavor profile that I wanted. I wanted a wheated bourbon from the beginning. I wanted an approachable whiskey. I wanted to create something that again, people just didn't feel like. I feel like a lot of people try to get attention. Like, look at this, look at that. I also don't want to spend this whole time just talking, making it like an advertisement for my product. So I want to talk about whiskey in general. But yeah, I went down that road and decided, okay, here's the product. We can go into also why it ended up being a Gadwall. I know that's what you and I had a little messages about it. And I was like, I don't know, it's resonating in a way that I never thought it could be, which is beautiful, but I had no idea it was going to go in that direction.
Yeah. So something you said right there that I really grabbed to was your wife pushing you. I feel like a lot of successful people don't contribute their spouse as much as they should. And I mean, it's like crazy. Like, I mean, I probably wouldn't have half the stuff I have. My wife didn't kind of just give me the green light. And we were at like an event a while back, and I kind of learned this a while back. We was at like a fundraiser event for Ducks Unlimited, and my buddy's wife, who she was wanting to buy a helicopter hog hunt, and I'm sitting there going, like, yeah, heck yeah. And he's talking her off the ledge, and I'm looking at him like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's her money. Let her. And I'm like, I looked at my wife. I was like, dude, if I had to be responsible one in our relationship, we would be broke. We would not have a house we built. We would not. I was like, we'd be living in our parents' basement because it would not. And I was like, I never realized like how much like you really need. Like, it's those little things. Like, even with having kids, you realize like how much you got to contribute on that other person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that kind of thing where you just like, you need that support, right? That somebody says, we can do this, and we don't have to do it where if things don't go the right way, we're risking everything, right? We can look at this responsibly and explore it. But if this is something that, again, you don't want to be at the end of the day or the end of the road, right? And be like, I wish I did this, or I wish I tried that. So
yeah. And it also kind of made sense there, you talking about like how hard it is in the US, because I know, like, I'll go, like, around me to go buy, like, a bourbon. Like, if I want to pick up, like, another bottle of bourbon. And, like, it's 99% all the same stuff. that you can find everywhere. It's just a repeat process. All of them, you might find one or two new ones or something, and I'll have to like message someone because I've never even heard of it, and I'm like trying to find out about it. And then like we were in Alabama this last week, and I was like, oh, let's pop in the liquor store. Which you talked about the different sets of rules. Fun one in Alabama, they have to call their stores package stores.
Right.
And I was like, we were like driving in at night. My wife goes, if you want to go looking for alcohol, you got to go find a store that says package. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. She goes, I've already figured it out. Like the packages means they're selling liquor. I'm like, that makes no sense. And I guess it's a dumb rule down there and stuff that they have to sell something other than liquor, which might be a candy bar. Who knows? But yeah, it's like a weird thing. Like we were down there and I found nothing different. Not a single one randomly different. And I'm like, this is kind of like sad. Like it feel like you have to. It's really hard to find something new, kind of in like certain areas, and like.
So this is, you are explaining or verifying something that I felt, and I've been talking about with some other distillers, that I was wondering why we're so successful online sales in certain regions. I'm like, why is this? I never thought Louisiana, why this market or that market and that market, and we're talking about it. And I said, I wonder if I know that market is really hard to come by with different types of alcohol. Like it's a state law like that, you have to buy through the state, right? Like Virginia, you have to buy through the state. You don't buy through, and all these little things. And I was like, I think it's just because of availability. It really comes down to it's so hard in certain regions to get different, like the variety of products. And I think that has been like, I think online sales and other types of things have helped so many different types of small businesses, including ours. I mean, where you can say, we have small distribution and we're looking to go get bigger, but we get to let the markets and let the consumer tell us, hey, we really like your product over here. And then at least those distributors, those importers will say, wow, you can do that online. We should take a bigger risk and try to get that product on the shelves for you. Like now, I get why they don't, right? It's a safe bet. It's a smaller market, but when you get to show actual online sales, which nobody could do before, you couldn't do those type of things.
Yeah. It's definitely, man, I kind of like it. Like, yeah, I mean, I get it. Cause it's funny. Cause you can find like certain ones, but then like, I feel like Buffalo Trace is a very popular one, but I cannot find it. I can't find it. Like, I rarely can find it around here. Pendleton, that's a popular one. Super rare. I know two places I can go get Pendleton. And that's weird because then I know a ton of other stores where I can walk in and buy any of the Jack Daniels or the Evan Williams and stuff. And I'm like, I really don't want that. Like it's kind of like, I guess it's probably price point and all that, fun distribution. There's probably a lot more uneducated, that's a bad way to say it probably, but I'll say it, uneducated bourbon drinkers who literally, young 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds that are just going to go buy, I know Jack Daniels. There's just songs about Jack Daniels. They're going to go grab it.
Right, well, exactly.
It's literally the easiest song to sing about, guys. It's relatable. That's why it's in there.
Yeah.
You have your good bourbon drinkers that know about all the really good stuff.
Yeah, I think, again, I go back to being informed. Like the uninformed, right? They're like, I see this on TV, or I see this, or this is, Jack Daniels is an iconic brand in general, not just an iconic alcohol brand. They went all the way to the Supreme Court having trademark rights about those, the whole issue. That's how iconic that brand is. But I think, again, it goes back to, yes, availability, and then people deciding how much they want to educate themselves, how much they want to explore something, learn something. Again, when I got into it, I knew I knew the difference between Scotch and bourbon. That was it. I couldn't tell you the difference between Tennessee whiskey and a bourbon and a rye whiskey. I couldn't tell you all those different things. I couldn't tell you legally why they were different or why they were different on flavor profiles. I had no idea. Like it takes an investment. And when you do, you're like, when we launched, you're always there's always naysayers, right? There's always like, wow, another bourbon on the market. You can't be just another one. And you go, well, I appreciate that. You're right. If you go into your local shop, you're probably just seeing a wall of brown, right? You're like, look at all this whiskey. All right. But now narrow it and say, well, that's a wall of American whiskey. Well, then that's a wall of bourbon, and that's a little section of high rye bourbons. Oh, that's a section of rye. Wait a minute, over there is just some wheated bourbons, and maybe there's only 12 of those
Yeah.
in the entire country. So it's like when you start like really understanding it, you go, wait a minute, there aren't a lot of wheated bourbons out there. And then you say, well, there are not a lot of craft wheated bourbons or small batch wheated bourbons. So it's just it takes time to like understand all those differences and those nuances that allow you to kind of go through the mark. I'm curious, you said you went into bourbon. What was it about bourbon that made you go in a direction instead of anything like a scotch or a rye or anything along those
So
lines? Or do you appreciate those too, but you still gravitate to a bourbon?
I think it was because like I kind of found a safe bet in 2 bourbons and three bourbons. I did a wedding and a guy gave me a bottle of Larceny. He's like, "Here, try this."
Okay.
And that was kind of like it kind of opened me up, and I was like, "Man, like I kind of like this." And then I kind of ventured out and tried something. I was like, "Oh, I don't like that." And then I kind of came back, and like I would always gravitate to that one. I'd kind of look and see like, okay, what's similar? What can I take that's kind of similar? And I kind of ended up with like 3 bourbons that usually stay in our house, or like I'll buy them as like a thing. I think I started because of my wife's family is like her husband is in the military. Like, man, he's all the time. Like every time he come, I'm like, he'd leave and like we have like 4 extra bottles of bourbon. What like? And then I finally got it. Like it's kind of like the way he was kind of raised. Like it's kind of like a house, like kind of like a house visitation gift or something. Like, and I've kind of gravitated that away. Where this past weekend I took a bottle of Gadwall and a bottle of Larceny down. And
Nice.
those were kind of the 2 that we kind of took down, and I kind of like set them down there, and like I went to leave, and his wife was like, "Here, like you're forgetting your bourbon." I was like, "No, man, that's yours. Keep it." Like, and I mean, it's like someone else will try it, and like maybe it'll gravitate their way. But the other 2 that kind of draw me that way was the Bullet, bourbon whiskey one, not the like the raw one, and then 4 Roses. Those
Yeah.
2 were like the other 2 that I kind of like. I can almost guarantee like those I'm gonna be a fan of. The only raw I've ever had that I honestly enjoyed was a Pendleton raw that I found in like Canadian Lakes, Michigan, and it was the last one on the shelf. We bought it and another bottle of Pendleton, and we were going golfing, and they were actually like the prices were like I didn't quite know what Pendleton should cost, but looking at it, like I had a good idea. I'm like, name this should be a little more. So we kind of like picked both those up real quick. I mean, that's kind of really the only raw I've ever liked though, whiskey wise.
I would. So you like our whiskey. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so similar profiles. My favorite rye on the planet is out of Virginia called Catoctin Creek. Highly recommend it. You ever get your chance? It's a beautiful rye. That's all they do is produce rye. I think they actually also make a gin, but it's not like
Okay.
on high production. But they only focus on ryes. And I mean, they really make an amazing rye. That is
Okay.
phenomenal. Like that's one of those where I'm like, ooh, I wonder if we should get into a rye. I'm like, no, they figured it out. They're good. They
Yeah,
got
I mean, I feel like I've ran across a lot more raws that I've tried and I've been like, nope, not a fan.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like
Well, yeah. Sorry.
I think it's like I don't know, maybe it's like I'm not used to it, or it's just like a different it's just a different profile too.
Without a doubt,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And I think that also tells like you know what you want and you go in a direction. But if there's ever times that you're thinking about a rye and you come across that, I'd recommend they've done a great job with ryes. It's honestly it's one thing I appreciate with some brands do. They focus on one thing and they try to do it well. Sometimes you see a brand and they're like, here's our bourbon and here's our rye, and then here's this thing and here's that thing. And you know what? More power to them. If they can, they have the ability to do all that and do it well, great. But I've seen where it's hard to kind of keep all those plates spinning. So like we only do bourbon, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Only do a bourbon. We only do a wheated bourbon. And our next expression that's coming out is going to be that high proof this summer, and then based on our bourbon on the wheated, and then secondary casks, which we haven't really finalized yet because we were focusing on the cask strength. So I like that model. I like just figuring out what you can do it well, and then kind of take those incremental steps to it. That works. That's something I'm comfortable with. But again, I think, and that's something that rye company does. They only really just do ryes, and I think that's why they're so successful at it, because they are only focusing on one grain, and they go in that direction. when I worked in doing all that international stuff, I don't know. So George Washington actually is considered the first whiskey distiller president. He actually made rye whiskey, and there's a distillery in Virginia. They rebuilt his distillery, and you can go get it. I don't know if you've ever had it. So it's a nice little like kind of advertisement to talk about American whiskey. Is that the first president of the United States actually made rye whiskey, and they found his original rye whiskey recipe, and you can taste it today. And people get really excited about that thing. It shows kind of the connection of American whiskey and how certain things you can only get from the United States. Because we used to produce tons of rye. Now we don't produce a lot of rye. So I think it's starting to come back where we're growing rye so that we can, use it in a lot of different applications. But I think earlier before 2010, a lot of rye was made with us buying grains from Canada.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can see that. So let's jump to what we're talking about. And it's on my mind. Let's talk a little bit about like the weeded process that you guys have. Whatever we can talk about that doesn't like, I don't know if there's any like secrets in it within, but like just the general like overview of how weeded whiskey is made. We'll just say weeded whiskey. I mean, you can.
So this is where one of the things that I run into a lot, and I've been really mindful of. I don't use weed whiskey anywhere on the bottle. We talk about doing neckties, like additional marketing, so people understand the differences of why it's different from other bourbons on the shelf. But it is a bourbon. It is not a wheat whiskey, it's a bourbon. So in order for it to be a bourbon, it has to be 51% corn, and then your secondary grain is either going to be rye or wheat or other things. Ryes are going to make it super spicy and add that punch. I like a wheated bourbon because it softens the whiskey. It really mellows everything out. It makes it much more versatile and much more approachable. All of my favorite whiskeys, or I should say, when I talk to people and somebody says I'm not really familiar with a bourbon, or I'm not really familiar with American whiskeys, I know Scotch, I say we're gonna try a wheated bourbon. Years ago, before I even made my own, I was like, I'm gonna give you a wheated bourbon because that'll kind of make it a little easier for you. When I would do tasting events in international markets, I always started with a wheated bourbon because it's a little sweeter, it's a little softer, and if you do it right, you can actually have a better finish than sometimes, because with things with high rise or rye profiles, they punch you so hard in the front that you're not getting anything at the end. There's just not much going on. So, and again, different styles. Sometimes I enjoy that, sometimes I don't. But so that's really what the role of wheat is. And then malted barley is really activating. It's those enzymes that really kick the whole fermentation part. And then the other part that malt does is that it has the great like mouthfeel. It turns everything else. That's why you'll see higher malt mash bills and lowers and that kind of direction. So, I mean, that's why American single malts, I wish were getting more popularity because they're great, but they've been having trouble kicking through the door because they're a higher price point. But yeah, I think that's why you don't see a lot of wheated bourbons, because they're softer, they are more approachable, and people think that if you want to stand out on that shelf of whiskey, you've got to have something that's gonna throw an elbow and say, we've got all this profile with rye and that kind of stuff. And I when I was doing this and thinking about this, I'm going the other direction.
It kind of makes me think about moonshine, the way you just described that, because like you have, like, sadly I haven't drank a lot of moonshine, but I've tried enough of it to know that I'm not a fan. I'm far from a fan of it, even though like I've known a lot of people that's made it at their homes and stuff, and like it's I mean, in West Virginia it's a pretty popular drink, and you have some manufacturers that make it and stuff, and yeah, it's just such a freaking punch. Like, personally, I don't think it's smooth at all. Like, it's the worst smooth. Like, to me, I don't know why you're gonna, like, drinking should be like a smooth drink. Like, there's one thing, like, if it's punching you in the mouth, like, yeah, like I understand, like, if you're doing like a certain thing or eating a certain thing or certain, like, pairing it with like a cigar or something, like, I get that part of it.
Right.
But to just like be hanging out with friends. Like I don't want punched in the mouth 90% of the time.
No,
It's just not
exactly.
it's just not enjoyable. And that's something I like about like kind of all the ones I listed. I feel like they don't do that to me. And honestly, Gadwall's the smoothest one. I mean, that's why I've already been through 2 bottles, 3 bottles. Like, I mean, it's one of those. It's just an easy pour. Like, I mean, I can pour it over the rocks. I can make it cocktail into it and stuff. I mean, like you said, it's just I knew it was weeded based off of advertising within your social media and stuff. It's like it's not like a smack you in the face advertisement. It's just very like kind of background. Like you see it, like you see the wheat grain and stuff. Some people probably don't even realize that's what's in your advertisement.
Yeah.
But it's very subtle. Like I like those advertisements. And I mean,
So I appreciate it. We're less than 20% wheat, right? So like if you think of like a wheat, so Woodford does a true like wheat bourbon. Like they only like it's all like high wheat. Like that's what it is. And that's an interesting product. And because there's a lot of wheat whiskeys out there because they can't call it a bourbon, right? You legally can't call anything a bourbon that doesn't have your primary grain. 51% of it is corn. So when you drink like a wheat whiskey, it's really different than when you drink like a wheated bourbon, where it's like again, it's your secondary grain is wheat. It's much different. But yeah, I like when we drink Adwall, it's usually on the rocks. I mean, we drink it every different way. I mean, we'll drink it on the rocks or neat. But that's why I will use bitter agents when I make cocktails because I like the balance because it's a softer profile. So I'll add a little bitter to it, where other people like it to keep going, building on the sweetness. But yeah, I mean, I think it's also like if you think about beer, right? Like beer kept on getting. You talked about those IPAs. It kept on getting stronger and stronger and like more like hitting you in the face. Like, it was
yes.
just going in that direction. And I feel some whiskeys were going in that direction too. It's like, well, here's a craft whiskey, and it was going hitting you in your face and hitting you with all this. Like a high rye bourbons are great, but after a while, you're just like, I can't sit down and have like a punch in the face like that constantly. So that's where, again, when I thought about it and I was like, I'm going to go in this direction, I was a little nervous, but I was like, I felt confident that everything that we do, and this is that also comes from what my wife and I talk about, is that everything we do for the brand, if we don't enjoy it, we don't do it. That's at the end of the day, like we don't make anything that we don't want. We don't try to say we want to we want to make it approachable so anybody can enjoy it. But at the end of the day, if you don't like what you're doing, then what's the point of it? And then how do you stand behind it?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. You have to love your product before someone else can love it.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's crazy, like, because I can think of this in like a video production standpoint. I can put something out, and I'm working on a project right now that I kind of wrapped it up. And to be honest, I didn't like it. I sent it to like 10, 12 people to get their feedback. And I knew 2 of them would be honest, which was funny because when I sent it, I was like, okay, 2 people be honest. The rest are going to give me BS answers. And they weren't BS answers. They were the answers I expected from that person. They're like, yeah, I enjoy it. The 2 people I expected to get the responses in the manner or other production people, video production people, and they gave me their honest opinion. They're like, I would change this, this, and this. I was like, thank you. That's what I needed to hear. I was like, because I felt like it needed it, and I was like, I just need someone else to verify that that's what I need to do because I was already it just had been a long week, and I was like, I just want to export this and let someone look at it because I'm tired of looking at it myself. I feel like that,
That's
like,
impressive.
when it come to making the bourbon, like, how long was the process getting it correctly made?
So 2 things. Where first, I want to get to that level. It took me a long time to do that in general in life, where you just like say, I got to start over, or I gotta cut. It was one of your other podcasts that I was listening to. You said something that I was really impressed with as well. I was like, man, you're just well ahead of where I was. Like, I'm hitting 50 this year, so it took me a long time to figure. You take some time and you try some things out, and one thing that I learned back in my days of production that I use today throughout my entire life, professionally and personally, is that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Just because you can do something really complicated and elaborate doesn't mean it fits there, right?
Yeah.
And like oh, I remember like we could do this great this and we could do all that. It's like, well, does it call for it? Well, no, but I want to demonstrate that I can do all those things. And it's like, well, maybe it's not the time to do it. And when I was young, you felt like, you want to do those things. So I feel like that's also why now with Gadwall, I was able to step back and say, it doesn't have to, you can add a little subtlety. It can be just exactly this without having to be, just to show that, yes, you can make things ridiculously elaborate, but they don't necessarily need to be, or it doesn't call for it to be. Um, I think when we were looking at Gadwall and we were going down this road, I mean, I always knew, again, it would be an approachable whiskey. It'd always be something that I want to enjoy. At the end of the day, it's just, what do I want to enjoy? What do I drink on a regular basis? I have a handful of whiskeys that I enjoy drinking. And when we were going through the process, and this is something I wanted the proof to be a much higher, because I really liked the profile at a higher proof, but I didn't think it was going to, for two reasons. I didn't think it would work. Wheated bourbons at a high proof was just so unique. I was like, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if I can do that, because wheated is supposed to be softer, and then you do a high proof, like that seems to be kind of working against itself. Like it just seems to be going in different directions. It's like a contradiction. So I knew I wanted the mash bill to be under 20%, because if it got higher, it was going to be too viscous. It was going to I didn't like the consistency of that. And I knew that it couldn't go anywhere below 90 proof. Like it had to be there. I wanted to go up. I had it at 100, and that was my favorite. But the more and more I was drinking the 90, it was just so perfect, which is why this summer you're going to get a bottle of the 116. I think it's 116. So I'm curious what you'll think of that one. But that was the hardest part of it, was just finding the flavor profile with the proofing. Aging was easy. If I go too far, then I start getting into different pricing structures, which I didn't want to go into. I wanted it to go beyond. I mean, it's technically a straight whiskey, because straight bourbon, anything past 2 years is straight bourbon, and the youngest whiskey in there is 3 years. So if I went 6, it was going to get too complicated, and I wanted it to be more approachable than that. So the aging and the proofing, it's amazing. When I got into this industry, there's this balance between art and science, man. It's just so cool. It's so cool. Have you done distillery visits? Have you gone to some?
So I have not yet. I do have a buddy who he'll be over this weekend on in a couple days, and he actually, one of the bottles I got from you, he was like, I got it, and I was like, I don't know if I need quite this many. He's like, well, I'll take one off your hand. So he's coming over, and he was the one who got me into this, and they're going this summer to do another visits. They've been before, and I think next year we're going to go with them, because they've kind of got it down pat, and we're going to go hang out with them for a week down in Kentucky. And it's not that far. It's literally 2.5 hours from us. So I don't know why we wouldn't go do that. I mean, it just makes complete sense. I mean, just what I enjoy, and my wife actually, she enjoys, like, she definitely, like, it's not her go-to drink. Her go-to drink is tequila, and I blame her father for that. They will drink some more, and I had to break it to you. My father and my mother have started drinking a bunch of those, and I'm like, and my dad will drink bourbons too, but it's like it became this, like, and I hate tequila. It is the worst. Like, I can't stand it, and it's like, it's so funny because everyone's like, oh, let's go have margaritas. I was like, I'll drive us home. Until a Mexican restaurant figures out how to have a bourbon, I will drive us home. Like, I am not.
That's great.
But yeah, she actually enjoys them and stuff. So we're gonna go down and do that. And his wife enjoys them, so that's kind of gonna be a fun trip. But no, I have not done them yet. It's something that I do have planned for next year.
The Kentucky Bourbon Trail is amazing. It is. It's so eye-opening, and they've done a great job with it, so that you have all different types of distilleries. Like, you have really modern distilleries, and then you've got the really old classic ones with Jim Beam, and Makers is just so unique. Like, it has all this art there. It's just everything when you go to them, because you're like, well, whiskey is, it's got to follow 5 rules. How really different can we all be? Like, yes, we can create different mash bills and this, but you've got to have certain amount of corn, you've got to get to this certain temperature, you've got to be in new oak barrel, so you get all this stuff, right? So that part of it is there's a lot of redundancy, right? So you're like, how do you do all these different things? And so when you go to them, it's just remarkable how they all just like some of them don't do a darn thing, and they just go, come on in and look around. We've been here for so long, and then some of them come up with elaborate tours, and that makes them all kind of interesting when you kind of go around it. I think one of the social posts that I wrote when people ask me a lot about our whiskey, and then also just in general when I used to go internationally, because I always get like, how should you drink bourbon? How should we drink your bourbon? How you do this? And the master distiller over at Jim Beam, 7th generation, old guy, Fred No, really impressive. Obviously knows all this stuff, and he would always say the same thing. He would go, "If it's your whiskey, you drink it however the hell you want." And it was just boom, done with it. And it was just so on the nose, perfect that you didn't. It's like when it's in your hand and it's your whiskey, you do what you want with it. And I was like, that's what we should do with a lot of things. I think that's really good advice. So that's kind of what I tell people too. And I put that I put that out there when people ask, just enjoy it however you want. At the end of the day, it's your experience.
Yeah, I mean, like some people like like I actually like my father-in-law like he drinks bourbons. He does enjoy them and stuff, and like he actually likes Gadwall. Like he tried Gadwall like I think like 2 weeks ago or something. We had like an event here. There was some Easter what we did here. And we had like 4 or 5 different bottles, and we were like pouring rounds out of each one of them, and everyone was doing them on the rocks. Everyone was enjoying them. I think Gadwall, Makers, Larceny, and Bullet were the 4 we were pulling from. And like we were kind of like, I mean, it wasn't like, just college kids doing shots. Like everyone,
Sure.
about every hour, we'd all like circle up and kind of try something else different. I love I became a fan of coffee because of like my engineering field. I blame it for why I drink coffee, because it was just like once I got into it, it was like, hey, you're gonna have to start drinking coffee. You got to learn how to stay up late, get up early. And it's kind of like I did the coffee bourbon drink.
I know I had it. I made it. It was good. I didn't make it with the coffee that you used.
Yeah.
I couldn't get. I made it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's just
it.
that coffee is like another it's another small company that like I just fell in love with like on accident. It's one of those things where like I kind of like finding the small stuff that people haven't found yet, and it's something I enjoy. When it comes to that kind of stuff, and yeah, like it's a drink that I love, and he would not even try it. My father-in-law was like, "Nope, not even gonna look at it." He can't stand coffee, but he's the same guy who will stop, and my wife. Literally, you can't drive 10 minutes down the road without them. And like, we're not even close to a fast food restaurant. So like, they have to go out of their way, and they're like, oh, I want a soda. Oh, so we're going to go drive through this fast food drive through so you can get a Diet Pepsi. Yes, we are. And they will do it on a regular basis. Like, it's literally like they will leave an event and be like, let's just go grab a soda. And I'm like, we can hit a gas station. Nah, let's go through drive through. And I mean, it's just their thing. And it's so funny that that's their thing, but like, it's one of those where like, so like I know how to make, like he loves to mix stuff with like Diet Coke. So like we haven't like mixed him in it. Like I haven't mixed him a Gadwall yet with Diet Coke, but we will eventually. Like that's just going to be his thing.
So the Fred No, what I was telling you about at Jim Beam, actually said, I think it was his mother or mother-in-law or somebody who that was her favorite drink was bourbon and Diet Coke. That was it.
that would be my
so
fault.
It's like he said, it doesn't have to be. Like I was saying, you don't have to wear a leather apron and make it, like whip out a pair of tweezers and try to move some garnish, right? It can be 2-3 ingredients and you're done. And again, I don't mind those kind of fancy things every once in a while too, but sometimes we get a little too extreme with some stuff. So it's
yeah, I mean, anymore I've gotten like either on the rocks with just a little garnish of like bitters or something, or making like a simple syrup, and then for like the week in the evenings I'll do like a cocktail with like a simple syrup of like peach or brown sugar or something like that.
Yeah. But you actually are doing the formula that when I was working to help grow the awareness of American whiskey internationally, is what we would do, and what I do at home is pour different whiskeys.
Yeah.
Instead of just pouring one thing, right? Because you're like, oh, here's American whiskey, here's bourbon. It's like pour 3 or 4 of them, because then when you show the differences between these 4 things, it's so much more interesting. Like you're like, oh, wait a minute, I like that one, but not as much as that one, but that's okay. But I like that's so. I mean, then all of a sudden people are not saying I don't like whiskey. They're saying, oh, I see the differences of all these things. Now I get it, and let me explore another one. And do you have anything that's spicier or softer? That's
Yeah.
like that's exactly. I mean, again, the thing what you were doing is or what you do is exactly what I do it at home as well. But it's what we do to educate trade and consumers when I used to do a lot of international work.
Yeah. And to be honest, out of those four and a lot of bourbons I've had, I am not a Makers fan, and I don't know why, but I just can't like get on the Makers. And it is some of my wife's family's like favorite drink. They will show up every time with it, and I'm like, and I'll drink it. Like I don't hate it so bad. I'm not gonna drink it. I will drink it, but it's one of those where I'm just like, I don't know. Like it's just like the profile. Just I don't like the profile of it. But jumping back to like the art you were talking about and stuff with all this, you're right. Like one of the big things I've noticed and I found very cool, and it's like subtle stuff when you look at your bottle. Because I have one right here because I've been drinking a little bit out of it. The art on
Two
the
cheers.
yeah, the art on the label, and then the bottle itself. This bottle's not super fancy, but it has like little like it has like the little bumps on bottom and your cork. Like it's very subtle. I don't know how to say it in the right way. A very subtle. It's a very subtle bottle that's just like it looks nice, and I think that's one of the things you see like a lot of different bourbons. And I've actually looked at some and like been turned away because of how the bottle looks itself. Like I've been like, it's just not my thing.
So this goes back to what I was mentioning earlier is that some people will focus too much on the branding and not enough on the whiskey. And then sometimes people get lost on their whiskey and they don't think about how the presentation looks. So when we went down this road, I was like, okay, I know where I want to build this profile, but like where, what's this brand? What does it look like? And I'm a kind of a history buff. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I like that kind of like I like things that are a little more um, inconspicuous. Like you're not so like I don't have to be told directly what something is. You kind of just like let people interpret it or take what they want from it. I don't want to have to tell you, you know what this is? This is this, and that. I say this is what it means to me, and if it means something different for you, so be it. And that's kind of how we were developing it. The brand, like it's actually the designer for this label. We actually went through a couple designers because the first one we were going with was going into like I always knew it was going to be a Gadwall because I kind of fell in love with the Gadwall. Um, just I love that style. I love what the kind of bird represents. Like it's just like this is like it's nothing's going on with that bird when it's just there, right? And then all of a sudden it like kind of takes off and it's like, wait, where did all that come from? Where are all those colors? Where's all that depth? Like what the heck? That's I never didn't think that was going to come from that. So that once I learned about that bird, that was it. I was like, I'm locked into that. Gadwall Whiskey is our brand. There, it is. That's what it is. Let's go get this trademark. Let's go get a designer. Start working on that. And no one's going to talk me out of it. And that was like really the most confident we were. Like that's it for sure. And yeah, we had to go through some changes with some designs. Like we were really confident of how to take it. And the first stuff was just so fun. It was just so elaborate and stuff. I was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't think we're on the same page. So we went with something that has kind of a look. So if you look at it straight on, and I'll give you a little kind of behind the scenes. If you look at the bottle straight on, right, it's kind of very traditional, very kind of like this is. You can think of 3 different brands that when you think of like when you look at a bird like that straight on, right? And then when you start looking on the side, it looks a lot more contemporary, right? It looks like a little different, a little more modern. And that's kind of how we were developing it. Was like we want to be able to say that that we do incorporate. We love tradition. We love the heritage of bourbon production, but we want to also incorporate some of the innovation and some of the technology that's coming forward. To help. Like the technology that allows us to sell online and all those other things. Like you have to kind of balance between the two. So we were really just kind of developing something that had that kind of subtlety to it. I will tell you, I don't want to. I know we're kind of running low on time, but I'll say one thing I learned doing this. I've had the luxury of when I was working, helping all these other brands internationally, is that I met with so many people that got to tell me their horror stories, because like, wax corks are really cool. I always wanted to do a wax cork. I think they're kind of, I know Makers does one, but a lot of people do them, right? They
Yeah.
do these like wax toppers. But apparently, in some markets, wax dries out and it can pop. And like I hear all these horror stories, like just tons of little things that cost. So you never know how things will marry with each other. And when we got that bottle with that label, with this and that, all these little things that we had, they didn't marry well together. They just don't. They didn't kind of. It took a lot of work to make that kind of look the way it looks. I will say the high proof that's coming out in August, it's actually going to have a slightly narrower bottle, but everything else is going to be the same. But you'll see a slightly narrower bottle with our with um, with our high proof coming out this summer. So it should be a little interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. That is something that I know that I mean, I already know I'm gonna order it, and that is one positive thing is we just recently, West Virginia, I think within like the last like 2 years, have gotten the ability to order, and it's been a very awesome thing. And honestly, like the way you just described the bottle and the label and the bird itself, it kind of like, once again, like I think it's one reason why this relates so well to hunters in the duck hunting industry, because like we're probably, I mean, you're probably just as passionate about these birds as we are. Like it's crazy to say that, like everybody's like, oh, you're a hunter, you don't care about. No, honestly, like we pay more money to make sure they live than anyone else in the industry. Like we care. Yeah. And I mean, especially in the waterfowl industry, because like we're on borrowed time, because I don't think they realize like the changing of like every time they build like a subdivision somewhere. Well, you just got rid of a wetlands. Well, okay, thanks. Now we're gonna have to spend more money so we can put this money elsewhere. Like it's one of the most crazy things ever. And the way you describe the bottle, the label, the bird is perfect. I would honestly say a lot of duck hunters would explain it that way, that it's the most plain bird in the world. I mean, a lot of people call it a gray duck because, like, a lot of times all you see is the grayness of it until you start pulling out the wings and you see all the collar and stuff on it. It's like, it's very awesome. And I mean,
I can't. I mean, you just like I can't think of a nicer thing to say. I mean, that I like just feels fantastic. I mean, that's just wonderful to hear. And I think I appreciate where you come from. I spent I've been more than a few years in Florida, and when you see fishermen, I mean, how they want to protect those waters. Yeah. Nobody protects those waters more than fishermen. I mean, it is just, it's beautiful how hard they work to, like, when snook season opens or some others. I mean, it was just so great to, like, you learn about all these different things, and again, there's a degree of respect that I think comes from hunters and fishermen, or just those type of people, that I think that I've grown to really appreciate over the years of being exposed to it. It's really cool.
And I mean, with you being in that industry, like the farmers, like your grain farmers, man, those guys are the most. If it wasn't for them giving a crap, to be honest, no one would. To be honest, the government hiring guys that it would probably not have the right. They would get one or two of the right guys, but they'd have a lot more of the wrong guys trying to do it than the right guys. I mean, if it wasn't for those guys out there.
Yeah, I think this is why, again, I think it's great that, I mean, when you make them, especially with a wheated bourbon, like everything that we get, it's all coming here. This is one of the things that that I don't think a lot of people appreciate, is how production kind of, whether it's ends up at a restaurant or that distillery tour or this, that, I mean, it is like, there is a community that's involved in everything that you're doing, and everybody is benefiting, or there's a consequence to anything that changes with it. So it's been great. And I've done a couple, I've done quite a bit in my years professionally. And I think when you see the community that you build, or the community that you're a part of, when you do your own small business, that is something else. That is like, that's been the greatest part of it, is like just being involved in that community. That's cool.
Yeah. And that's how I feel with this. Like, to be honest, like, not to discuss any of my associations with any of the companies that are involved in this podcast, but like I'm more thankful of them than they are thankful of me. I'll say that much. And it'll always be that way. And like anyone who comes on here, I'm more thankful that you would take the time to talk to me, even though Ronnie Phillips guided me down the way that he says, you know, all you gotta do is ask. And that was kind of the way I take anymore. Like I gotta, like if I ask, either you're gonna say yes or no. It's pretty simple. I've had no's from people that I've been surprised from, and I've had yeses from people that I'm surprised from.
Nice.
So it's one of those where it's like, okay, well, that was a surprise. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I know we're short on time.
But again,
man,
at the end of the day, isn't that great? Like if you just, all it is a question.
Yeah.
It's the kind of stuff that I think about when I'm like, when my kid gets older, is like, you know, believe in yourself, take that chance. And at the end of the day, it's all it is a question, right? Just say, can I do this? Or would you participate in this? It's not, you know, just keep it simple.
Yeah. Well, before I let you get off here, because I know you've got a busy day and stuff, we're going to ask one question, just to get your input on. Other than Gadwall, what is your like go-to whiskey or your go-to bourbon?
Go-to bourbon.
Yeah, your go-to.
See, this is
I know.
You're gonna have to narrow it.
Yeah, I know. I know. Your go-to bourbon. We'll say that you have like always on the shelf.
Okay. I'm gonna take a minute to really respect this question because.
Yeah, coming from you is probably a lot more serious than anyone else. Oh.
There's so many. The go-to is like the hard part. Like there's like for so many different reasons, I'll grab a certain bottle. If I actually showed you that,
I couldn't imagine. Like my corner of my counter's already like full enough. We'll just put it this way. We'll simplify it a little more. Like you've come home from work. It's been a long day. You don't grab Gadwall. What do you grab? You just want one to relax for the evening.
I'm gonna give an honest answer, even though the person's a friend. It is the one that I will grab, and I've been grabbing for years. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's called James E. Pepper. James E. Pepper it's because it's a higher proof bourbon, so it's 100 proof. So it's kind of why I gravitate toward it. It's a bourbon that I like to kind of grab. It's a little higher on the rye, so I wouldn't say that it's my go-to. But if I'm not grabbing my style bourbons that I like, and I want to have a little something that's outside of wheated bourbon, the James E. Pepper. So even though the owner is a buddy, I tell him all the time, I'm like, it's like. He's always like, I'll send you some bottles. Like, no. I respect it enough. I'm going to actually buy your damn bottle. I'll go and get it. So that's what I always say. If I'm going to go buy your bottle, trust me, I like it.
Hey, I'm right there with you, man. I don't like, that's one thing. It's funny. Like I don't expect any handouts. I'm fine with going and buying it. Like it doesn't bother. Like I'm going to buy it either way. To be honest, like that's the funny thing. They're like, oh, well, I'm like, I'm paying for it either way. So,
Yeah. I mean, so there. See, I can't answer that simply. I was going to say, well, there's also this bourbon that I like for this reason, and this person I like for that one. But at the end of the day, it has been on my shelf. Like what I thought was, what is the one that's been on my shelf for the past decade that is like the second it's not on my shelf, I make sure it's back on my shelf. And that's how I can answer that. Like if there's a bourbon that ends up not being on my shelf, I always make sure that I have a bottle of pepper on my shelf because I really like having that around. It's a fun whiskey.
All right, I'll have to make sure I check that one out.
Yeah, well, and so Four Roses. I'm curious. Is there a particular type of Four Roses that's?
Oh crap! I forget I know what the bottle's shaped like.
Okay.
To be honest, it's I'd say it's like the height of your bottle, but it's more like hourglass like. I can't think of which one that is.
Yeah.
It's not one of the small batch. It's not the tall, skinny one. I literally don't have one over there. I'd grab it at the moment.
I'm curious. I know I don't want to. That was our last question, but I'm curious. Have you ever had any Japanese whiskeys?
No. As far as I know, no, I haven't. No.
Okay. Yeah, let's see if I have. I think you'd dig them. I think because they're there's a nice little subtlety to them than like Irish and Scotch whiskeys. They're kind of cool.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely. The only problem is they're hard to come by. So
Yeah.
like I don't have any Japanese whiskey in my home right now because it's hard to come by. But,
And if
yeah.
you'd probably have way more connections than I would find one. Although, I mean, I could probably chat
Yeah.
GPT up a location real quick if I've learned anything lately.
I was gonna say I'm trying to think of the last time I had one, and I was like, I had to be at like an event or something that like I had exposure to because they're hard to come by. But I was thinking the profiles and everything you've been mentioning, and I was like, I wonder if he's ever had a chance to sip them. But the Four Roses is a great one. I was trying to think of a regular like a regular kind of like mainstream one that like really stands out. But like I said, if I'm going to try to keep it simple and answer that question, if that bottle's not on my shelf, I go out and get it.
I mean, for me, to be honest, it'd be two, and I have a lot smaller set of stuff. It's either going to be Bullet or Larceny. If I don't, I usually have at least one of those in the house.
Years ago, one of my favorites, but it was a little, I didn't, Maker's 46. I didn't like Maker's regular, just wasn't, I didn't like the way Maker's finishes, which I don't want to like. One thing I really love about this industry is that people don't really they don't like take shots at each other because they shouldn't. And I think that's why the industry.
No, everyone's.
And we all have different flavor profiles and interests, right? So
yeah,
just because I don't love the finish of a Maker's doesn't mean somebody doesn't think it's the greatest whiskey in the world, and Gadwall isn't. But the way the 46 finishes, I do enjoy that sometimes. So I do enjoy having a 46, but yeah, it's a little. But yeah, there's again, see, this is the greatest part. Is like if you can walk into any shop and then figure out why, what are those 6 whiskeys over there out of those 6, but somebody else, the uninformed, will walk in there and go, all I see is whiskey. All I see is brown alcohol. That's all I see. But in actuality, it's like there are these nuances. And again, it goes back to what you do and what I try to do as well. Just pour a bunch of different whiskeys and figure out why, try all of them, try one and tell me why you like that one. And I'll tell you what it's made up of and how you can look for 4 others like it.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. I've turned a few of my friends over the whiskeys, and it's been that way. It's been like just pouring them something, and like I've learned to try not to be judgmental of like what they choose and like, because it's different.
Yeah.
But man, I don't want to hold you up all evening.
No, it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to your feedback on our high proof. I'm really excited about that. Oh, I guess I'll ask you one last question. What's your secondary? Do you have secondary casks finishes that you like? Like, do you like things that are finished in port? Like, do you like those port barrels and that kind of stuff? That it's actually dropped a little out of popularity, and now people are going in more complicated, different directions. But again, I never try to follow the trends, because if you do, anything you do now, it's not going to be ready for years, right? Yep. So you at the end of the day, you just you make what you like. So.
Yeah, your business is definitely that's a. Yeah, we will eventually have to. Maybe when the high proof drops, I'll get a couple bottles of it, and I'll get my buddy Nick, and we'll set up, and we'll all get back together sometime and talk. Because I mean, we could go down such a rabbit hole of so many. Because I mean, you bring that up, and I have it just opens the door for 1,000 questions about making bourbon that are just simple questions that are I mean, how in an industry where it's aged. This is aged at least 3 years, I think.
Youngest whiskey on your bottle has to be the number on your bottle has to be your youngest whiskey. So,
yeah. So I mean, 3 years ago, this was I mean, you got to think you waited 3 years.
Well, I told you during the pandemic, this whole thing started in 2020 when it first started.
So, and then you got to look at this off of that, you have another anything you do changes you make, it's another 3 years before there's changes. I mean,
I'll tell you quickly, like you said, it's a rabbit hole, but I'll tell you, what a lot of businesses do is they go and make a gin or they make a vodka so that they can sell that right away. because this way, as they're working on other things that take years,
Yeah.
they can get something in the market quickly. So there are formulas that you could do. Not all the formulas, everybody follows the same formula, and I sure as heck don't. But that's where people will make choices and go in different directions.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
just from a business standpoint, like the amount of money, the revenue that it takes for all this stuff, and you're sitting there waiting, isn't
Yeah. I mean, I've ordered bottles from Europe that, that will sit on a shelf for a while that, that you have to like bring in all that product. Like, it's just, I mean, there's all little
Yeah.
things. You have multiple, interests and businesses. So you get how all that kind of stuff works. So it's just, it's interesting how that, you think about the business, and then you think about the creativity, and you think about the science, and it's a balance. But at the end of the day, again, if you don't love it, then you should think about something else. You can't just love the whiskey. You got to love everything about it, which includes conversations like this. I've enjoyed this tremendously. This has been really great.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this hours went by very fast.
Maybe it's the whiskey.
It might be, but real quick before you hop off here, just kind of run through your businesses and where everybody can find you guys real quick, just so that we can I'll make sure to kind of put links also in the description so that.
And I was going to say, what I can do is I'll put something on our Gadwall.com or GadwallWhiskey.com that actually shows where people can find it. So
Okay, perfect.
most of it's for, depending on most locations, they're going to find it online, but our limited distribution is going to be in DC and Maryland and Delaware, and like handfuls. But a lot of it, as we explored, which we didn't even get into distribution of how, that challenge.
Yeah.
Because we were just about to hit Canada, and then we got into a trade war, which made it a little challenging.
Yeah.
So hopefully those doors will open again one day. Because for some reason, Canada loves Gadwall whiskey. It's like they're bonkers over it. I did a bunch of tastings last year in Canada and Vancouver and Ontario, and they were just like, let's sign something. And it was great. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I'll send that to you, and you can. It would be great if you could include it in your.
Yeah, man, for sure. Anything I can do to help you guys out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, you've been with us from the beginning. Really, again, it's been 6 months of where we actually are on the kind of retail side. So we're real young.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, and it's funny thing is, like, real quick, everyone it started getting shared, and everybody was like talking about it, and they're like, and they're like, wow, I wonder, and I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna buy some bottles. So I ordered 2, and then I ordered 6 more, and now in like probably another, see if I can make it to August. We might have to, we'll see how that plays out. We'll order some around August so we can get the new and some of this.
Well, I appreciate that, and we'll have to talk, because I really enjoyed all your feedback, and you've been seeing a lot of things that we really haven't made public yet. So I really enjoy all the insights you've been given, especially of that merch that we've been thinking about. So It's been great, and we'll definitely have to share some of those things along with you.
Hey man, you have a great evening, and I'll shoot you a message and hit you up.
Sounds good. You too.
All right,
Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was free, dude. I'm pumped. That was. Oh man, I got to get him back on, because there's so much. He had like an hour constraint. We went a little bit over. Man, that was just freaking awesome. I mean, he had so much feedback and so much information, and I had no idea about half of that. Actually, any of it, to be honest. He could throw me for a curveball in a heartbeat, but I mean, he's been in this industry forever. So I mean, it's just one of those things where, I don't know. I enjoyed it. We'll definitely get him back on, and we'll definitely talk more whiskey sometime in bourbon. But until then, everybody, make sure you check out the sponsors. Give them a shout. We're working on revamping stuff. Everything worked a lot better today. It looks like my screen is frozen. Is it frozen? It might be frozen. So let's peace out. Later.